In 1999, the Sega Dreamcast was released to the US market, with a set of unique games for it. Among them we have a fair share of rhythm game exclusives, Space Channel 5 and Samba de Amigo. Two franchises that are equally forgotten because fast forward to 2001 and the Dreamcast is already dead. Both of these did not sell that well on their own either, which to Sega most likely meant there was little to no worth continuing with them. But they still wanted their respective slice of the rhythm genre cake. And in a stroke of genius and a bunch of browsing on Nico Nico, they came up with the idea, yo, what if we take this twin-tailed voice synthesizer android and make a game about her? Takeshi, you just hit straight in the fucking money.
Se llama Hatsune Miku y apenas tiene 13 años pero ya cuenta con una legión de seguidores en todo el mundo.
In the last off-topic video, so to speak, I've talked about Initial D and how I managed to get into it. Looking back, I was fairly knowledgeable about the franchise, being a fan of it for about 2 years. Vocaloid is a different story, since I only got interested in it about half a year ago, which is a fair amount of time, but consider the following. Initial D's fanbase is far smaller to that of Vocaloid, and a lot of people became longtime Vocaloid fans from as early as 2010 or so. Suffice it to say, I'm going into this subject as an underdog.
That player gets executed live.
And like the vast majority, I got my feet wet into the genre with the Hatsune Miku Project Diva games.
Oh shit.
Project Diva is a series focused on the very thing that made Vocaloid so big in the first place, the songs. Therefore its core gameplay is set as a rhythm game. You know, just tap the right button at the right time and you'll make progress. But what made these games distinct was featuring unique PVs with the Vocaloid idols. At least the 6 most well known, the creator of Minecraft, Bart and Lisa Simpson, the Freaky Fish Guy, Naoto Fuga, and
a fucking VB long neck.
They also feature considerable side content, like an edit mode for custom charts and PVs.
The missile knows where it is at all times. It knows this because it knows where it isn't.
And the so-called Diva Room, a space to chill out and see Miku and the others do random activities. Hell, you can even play rock, paper, scissors with them.
Please die, please die, please die, please die, please die!
This alone makes F and F second automatic 10 out of 10s. While they enjoyed noticeable success, they would also end up on a constant decline. The warning sign being Project Diva X. Graphically speaking, I would say it's the best looking game in the series, which is relevant due to half the focus and selling point being the PVs. But its mechanics were overall conflicting, and the story mode aspect questionable. But even more conflicting than whatever the fuck Voltage is, that'd be Arcade Future Tone, aka Future Tone, aka Megamix, aka Megamix Plus. Yeah, being ported so often over the PS3 titles was a con for the game. But regardless, let's dive deep into it and review the most recent port of the 250 song behemoth known as Megamix Plus. What makes Megamix such an interesting title is that instead of following the gameplay foundation of the previous games, it chooses to deviate with a similar but ultimately completely different approach. Rather than featuring sustains, double notes and having a score system based on total correct inputs, you have hold notes, which differ in being completely optional to go for, but a considerable score boost if used otherwise. Sliders that make use of the joysticks and admittedly offer more of a challenge than star notes ever did. Seriously, those might have been fun, but they were usually brain dead. Replacing double notes, however, we have multi-input notes, let's call it that. For a quick background, the reason these exist is because of the controller layout in the arcade cabinets. Since it didn't feature 2 equal buttons to press, this was the best solution, and suffice it to say, it completely defines most of the challenge. I'll get more into the specifics of difficulty at hand, but these are the controls laid out when first starting off. Even though when starting off, people will focus on the songs first. The song collection is massive. On paper this is great, you get a lot of agency where to start, but at the same time I find it a disadvantage. Such a humongous library means a large amount of charts, and a lot of them may be fairly polished, while others feel either cheap or at worst poorly constructed. For the record, I'm addressing most of these critiques under the extreme difficulty, where I find the game manages to find a balance between fun and challenge. The downside to extreme and extra extreme is that you have to play the hard version first. To be fair, that's how it also worked on previous entries. Worse even, by also requiring normal to be cleared. But at least the song collection was much smaller. There's also instances of songs showing up twice for no reason. I could understand it with Butterfly on your right shoulder due to having 2 separated PVs, but did Senbon Sakura and Solitude's End really need a second version where it's just the unedited official PV? Yeah, it's most unfortunate that a lot of these are essentially YouTube videos. Literally. More baffling is the absence of other songs like Hato and Kaguru Days. And even more noticeable is the lack of Evan Polka, one of the most well-known Vocaloid songs out there, and a staple since the first game has just vanished and replaced with a mediocre rendition. But hey, copyright is always a bitch, ain't it? I don't think I have much else to comment on the songs. It's a big collection, and if nothing else, you're free to start from wherever you wish. Here's a collection of some of my favorites.
Okay, grab my ass, dude.
I also must admit, it's really cool they ended up adding Mega Man 2 music of all things within the collection. The PVs themselves are great. Most cases are used for choreography, with occasionally a dynamic stage, while others take a storytelling approach instead. Sometimes you also have the more elaborate PV like Catch the Wave and Two-Sided Lovers, with incredibly animated backgrounds. Then you have cases where you question what the fuck are you even watching. We already mentioned this straight from YouTube ones, lame as shit. And then you have cases of PVs that look like they came straight out of edit mode. Because they actually were, submitted as fan entries. And I have nothing against it. I mean fuck, they can even pull off some neat camera trickery at times. However, just watching a cool animation would be incredibly lacking, and further justify just watching the YouTube video of it instead. Which is where modules and accessories come in. They're pretty self-explanatory, just select which characters you want to show up for the PV and with which outfit. Even better than predetermined modules, there's the custom t-shirts.
Oh, that's that good shit!
You cannot begin to process how much time I spent scheming for custom design. Seriously, any game that allows for some form of user customization like this is an instant win. For the same reason the Cybergrind in Ultrakill is fucking phenomenal. They should take notes from Ultrakill and make T-designs easily editable from in-game folders. But as fancy as the PVs and modules may be, and as catchy, emotional, or intense the songs may sound, for what purpose would you buy a glorified album with no gameplay on it?
We ain't doing geometry, we try to play some games.
We've already established the control scheme of the game, but it goes much deeper than that in terms of complexity. The charts are heavily designed around its original controller. This is a key detail to fully understand the design of said charts, and it becomes the most apparent by taking a look at multi-input nodes. More often than not, they'll feature very specific spacing between each other, as to resemble the arcade controller. A few examples include triangle circle being set apart the farthest, square cross the closest, and square circle off by one space. Assuming the use of a DualShock or similar, doing some of these inputs at a fast rate, triangle cross being the most notorious, can become bothersome. Thankfully you can set up macros for specific combinations, and upon doing so you severely make the playing experience much more comfortable. But not necessarily easier. Touching on the difficulties, easy and normal are really easy and really normal. They're a good starting point for inexperienced players, but it can get rather boring. Hard strikes a balance on being easy and comfortable for veterans, but a challenge for newcomers. And extreme is where I say the game truly gets a grip. Your skills are put to the test in order to bypass the charts presented. A lot of careful attention, accuracy, and quick thinking is required if you want to make it past the standard threshold. Alright, I haven't talked about the win conditions. The bottom bar represents how much you've cleared of the song and the range it's gonna fall under, unless you manage to perfect it, which falls to that rank. But the major difference here is that where previous Diva games were based on total successful inputs, here it's all a matter of how good of a score you got, and the margin of error is very slim. Just 2 or 3 saves easily bump you down from excellent to great. Score rating is the reason why hold notes matter so much, because they can heavily influence your final results. It's a messy system overall, less enjoyable than the previous one. But assuming standards and grades are good enough of an end goal, how are the song charts? First off, you have 6 and 7 star songs, which is glorified hard difficulty, and a good enough entry point to extreme if you don't mind being bored with some of them. 8 star begins introducing much more complex sequences to the mix, but with some practice it's manageable. 9 star is where the songs strike a balance on its challenge. The songs featured here are difficult for certain, but they don't feel overwhelming just yet, most of them anyway. It's the right amount of difficulty balance, and admittedly I'm a bit biased since it features a lot of good songs. But if a true ordeal is what you seek, then you're gonna have to reach for the 10 stars.
says you lost.
As you can infer from the name alone in the fucking select menu, 10 star is the highest difficulty in Megamix, and it will make sure you know it. A heavy amount of skill, practice, and in some instances luck are necessary if you wish to beat these brutal songs. Hell, by the time of me making this video, I have only beaten Two-Sided Lovers, World's End Dance Hall, and Sadistic Music Factory, with Negapose Continuous and 2D Dream Fever coming close but not quite. In many respects, 10 stars definitely will feel impossible to beat, and you're gonna be a long time trying and failing. But with enough perseverance, you can make it, and once you do, there's no better feeling. Of course, you still have furthermore options to bust your balls. Extra Extreme is self-explanatory on concept, even more difficult charts for a selection of songs, most frequently by implementing sliders onto the mix. But here I would argue it gets stupid at times, since the charts have been heavily redesigned and barely resemble the original patterns from easy to extreme, and they're often designed with the intent of deliberately throwing you off on the first attempts. And the second ones, and the third ones...
What the hell is that?
There's also additional settings for prompt display, in high speed, hidden and banish. They're usually inconsequential, just for some extra flavor and replayability. But beating charts at max speed is the absolute shit, so it's not all bad. With all that said, I will conclude that I enjoyed the game a fair share for what it has to offer. But would I recommend it? Well... It's complicated. On one hand, Megamix is easy to get on PC, not necessarily cheap though. But on the other, I can't say it's the peak of the Project Diva series. It ranks high for me, but I'd be lying if I said that its gameplay and scoring system is better than what was previously established, and as a consequence of being a direct port from an arcade, it also lacks a lot of the charm. Previous titles used to have fan art for the loading screens, and the inclusions of the Diva Room and Edit mode tremendously increased replayability and experimentation. None of these are present in Megamix, and while the character customization is great, it's just not the same entirely. Not to mention, the gameplay can be rather complicated for newcomers, mainly due to the heavy use of multi-notes. For an introductory entry, I'd definitely have to go with the PSP titles. They're the most basic, but it also helps us to get a good grasp of what the series is about. They're easy enough to emulate, and there's English patches out there. Objectively, the best entries are F and F2nd, as they perfect the foundations laid on the PSP, and further expand on the side content. Problem is, they're stuck on PS3 and Vita. Then there's X. I've yet to play that one. And that brings us back to Future Tone / Megamix. I best recommend getting into this game after at least gathering some experience with the others. But also, since the gameplay is so different, it may not even matter, so ultimately choose yourself where to start if you wish to get into Project Diva. All roads are completely valid. So what's the verdict? It's Hatsune Miku Project Diva Future Megamix Championship Edition and Knuckles a good game, or a sin brought upon this world? I say they should have just ported F and F2nd. It's definitely a fun time if you're into Vocaloid or rhythm games. Best case scenario both. The difficulty can be a turn off, especially if you're inexperienced, but if you can get past the skill filter, it can become satisfying. And the visuals themselves are great, so yeah, I'd say it's a great game, just not the pinnacle of the series. But two questions remain on this entire video. First, when's the Dahlia review? Good question. And second, what the fuck was up with the Space Channel 5 mention at the beginning? The answer is quite simple. There's an Oala module. Hey guys, Unscripted Kevin here. Just wanted to say thanks for watching. I know this isn't what the vast majority was expecting. I'm pretty sure everyone wanted me to already get to Dahlia, but I will get to it eventually, I promise. So far, good results, like I said in the previous 5.2 video, but still, I gotta give it more time to really get a perspective as to what the results are. This video, more than anything, was just a passion project. I really enjoyed this series when I tried it out a couple months ago, circa April or so. And really, I just wanted to get into it, make a big fuck off shit post, and I don't know, just have some fun with it. I know this is not gonna do very well. I mean, my audience is after all Skullgirls Mobile, so it's not gonna catch the attention of a lot of people. But hey, for those that watched it, again, thanks and much appreciated. For the next video, it's definitely back to SGM, that's for sure. Not exactly have an idea as to what will be next, but I'm pretty sure something will come up. With that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.